Hey, what's up, everybody? True Boxing here. Thank you for coming back to get hit with the truth. So today, want to discuss the what's next for the undefeated WBC middleweight champion of the world, Jermall Charlo, following a harder than expected 12-round unanimous decision win over Juan Montiel. You know, he convincingly won the fight on points. There's no question about that. But he took shots in this fight, and and you could tell he got, I'm not going to say he got hurt, but he definitely backed up and felt Montiel's punches. And for a point there, it looked like he got stunned and maybe a little hurt, but he kept fighting. And, Charlo, to me, I feel like he should have finished this fight without question. He should have finished his opponent. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Excuse me. Still waking up this morning, but for me, it wasn't a great performance, by any means, and especially coming off his career best win over Sergey Derevyanchenko and him trying to get in line for Canelo. I wasn't impressed, and I really don't think Charlo is on that level, and I really think he's going to continue to be protected with his opponents until he gets the big fight that he wants, which pretty much is Canelo, or if he ends up fighting Triple G, it's got to be on his terms, which, hey, in all honesty, he's the B side of that fight. So we got to wait and see what happens with Charlo, but let's take a look at what could possibly be next for the undefeated Jermall Charlo following that win. So, middleweight is, has a pretty good amount of decent fighters here. We're going to jump into the top 10 and see what he can do. I personally have Charlo at number 2 right now. Number 1 is Triple G, Gennady Golovkin. A fight with Charlo, I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't think DAZN and the PBC and Showtime or Fox, I don't think they come together for this fight. I'd like them to. I would love to see the fight, but I don't think they're going to come together, so I don't think this fight's possible. Number 3, undefeated WBO champion Demetrius Andrade. I don't think Charlo wants anything to do with Andrade. It's funny because they're both in a similar boat. They're both in a boat where, they both say they're avoided fighters. Charlo, in my opinion, is way more protected than Andrade is. I think Andrade really is down to fight anybody. Just Andrade doesn't understand that his style and his the fact that he's not a big name make him unattractive. He doesn't understand that. But I do think he's down to fight anybody. Now, Charlo, his style is not unattractive. It's actually an attractive style to get in a ring with, but he thinks people don't want to fight him, and the truth is he's just a protected fighter out of the PBC, and he doesn't really want to unify belts with Demetrius Andrade. And I think if those two guys got together, and if Charlo would beat him, he would be the unified champ, and he'd be like, hey, I beat the guy nobody wanted to fight. But he's not going to want to take that risk, especially since it's technically crossing the street, with the PBC and DAZN trying to work together. And the fight's just, I don't think it's possible. Next, it would be a rematch against Sergey Derevyanchenko. Not going to happen. There's no need for it. Charlo won the fight convincingly, and he doesn't need to take that fight. Next is Chris Eubank Jr. This is a fight I wanted to see, but I don't think Charlo wants to fight Chris Eubank. I don't think he wants anything to do with him. I think he looks at Eubank as a threat because Eubank originally was the front runner prior to the Derevyanchenko fight last year. He chose Derevyanchenko instead. And Eubank, I figured, would be a logical choice for his next fight if he couldn't get the big fight with Triple G or Canelo. And, he didn't go that route. He never even talked about that route. So I really don't think he wants anything to do with Chris Eubank Jr. So I don't see this fight happening. Next is Ryota Murata, the WBA regular champion. I don't see Top Rank and the PBC coming together for this fight. I just don't. So I'm going to say no to this one. Jaime Munguia, the undefeated former junior middleweight champion. I mean, I'd love to see the fight, but Golden Boy working with the PBC to make it happen, I don't think so. I just don't see it. Rob Brent just lost his fight. I haven't reshaped my top 10 yet, so I'm just kind of running through the way I had it coming into the year. Rob Brent hasn't fought yet. You know, I mean, he lost to the guy named Kazakh Style, which I don't think either one of those guys would be in the mix anyways. You know, so I'm going to say no. And then, you know, you got like Liam Williams rounding out the top 10. I mean, if Williams wanted to challenge him, he might fight him, and Charlo might fight Williams and go after him from the standpoint of like, oh, I beat Andre. I mean, I beat the guy that Andre couldn't knock out if he came out there and dominated him and knocked Liam Williams out. But I really don't see him going after a fight with Liam Williams. But at the end of the day, that's the top 10, and I don't know what the hell Charlo's going to do next. I just don't see. He talks about wanting the big names, but he won't fight any of those guys that would be a big fight to get to the big names. Daniel Jacobs has called him out at 168. I'm sure Danny might even try to make 160 to fight for the title, but that's a good fight. Daniel Jacobs is still managed by Al Heyman, so why not get together and make that fight a reality? But I really don't think that's a fight that he wants, you know, that Charlo wants. And that's the big thing is, outside of a Canelo fight, what does Charlo really want to do? You know, and the answer is we don't know. It doesn't seem like he really wants to fight the big fights and the fights that make sense. So, you know, we'll see what he does. We'll see what happens. That's it. That's the What's Next on Jermall Charlo. I hope you guys enjoyed it. True Boxing. You've been hit with